I won an historic lottery jackpot. I thought I'd keep it a secret until Christmas Eve dinner. I wanted to surprise my family and help them all. But a week before, my mom called me. "Don't come, Grace," she said. "Your failure is contagious, and we don't want that energy at the table." I was left holding the phone. I had been about to give my life away to people who didn't even want to sit with me. Well, let's start. My name is Grace Miller, and I was 32 years old when everything changed. In early October, I was fired from a marketing agency in Chicago. Officially, they said it was an internal restructuring. The company was adjusting departments, and my position was no longer necessary. But that was a lie. I had been working for months on a massive campaign for a major client. The project went wrong, yes, but not because of me. The decisions that sank everything were made by people in higher positions. People who never signed anything when there was risk, but who always appeared in photos when something went well. Someone had to take the blame. That person was me. That day, I drove back to my apartment in Lower Manhattan, trapped in the late afternoon traffic. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove with my hands clenched on the steering wheel, as if I still had to prove I could control myself. I had savings. I wasn't rich, but I could live comfortably for several months. And a part of me felt relieved. My boss asked for impossible things, changed instructions at the last minute, and then held me responsible for every mistake. I thought, I'll rest for a few days. I'll get organized. Then I'll look for another job. Then I called my family to tell them what had happened. "You should call Daniel and apologize," my mom said. "Ask him if you can stay with him for a while." Daniel was my ex-boyfriend. We had broken up 6 months earlier because he wanted me to quit my job, marry him, and dedicate myself to the home. I told him no, not because I despised that life, but because I didn't want a life chosen by someone else. "I'm not calling Daniel, Mom." "Well, you need somewhere to live if you can't pay rent anymore." "I can pay my rent. I have savings." "Savings run out, Grace." "I know, that's why I'm going to look for another job." She sighed as if I were a stubborn child. Then Brenda, my older sister, called me. "They're hiring at the company where Dad still works," she said. "I can talk to him to get you something. It's an entry-level position, but something is better than nothing. I'm a marketing specialist. I have 8 years of experience." "Yes, but right now you don't have a job. You're not in a position to be picky, Grace." Then my brother Owen called. "Maybe this is a sign," he said. "Perhaps you should focus on finding a husband, instead of chasing professional goals that aren't getting you anywhere." I hung up on him. In the following weeks, my family started treating me differently. They didn't say, "You're a failure," to my face, but everything in their attitude said it. My mom suggested I dilute dish soap with water. My dad told me to ditch the car, and Brenda sent me supermarket promotions, as if I had never bought groceries before. One Sunday, I went to my parents' house for dinner in the Upper East Side. There was rice, chicken and mole, and warm tortillas on an embroidered napkin my mom used when she wanted everything to look homey. I sat down and noticed something strange. No one wanted to sit next to me. They left an empty chair to my right and another to my left. It wasn't a coincidence. Brenda sat on the other side of the table with her husband. Owen sat next to my dad. My mom went back and forth from the kitchen more than necessary, just to avoid sitting near me. It was as if my bad luck could be contagious. I felt a horrible shame, the kind that stays under your skin, but I didn't say anything. I ate slowly. I smiled when I had to smile. And I left early. The only thing that kept me sane was my little Friday ritual. Every Friday, I bought 6 lottery combinations. It cost $45. I had been doing it for years, not because I believed I would win, but because I liked to imagine, even for a few minutes, a life where I didn't have to explain myself to anyone. The lottery vendor already knew me. "This is the one, Grace," he would say. My family knew about the tickets and made fun of it. "What a way to throw money away," Brenda would say. "Then don't say you don't have enough," my mom would say. I didn't care. It was my money, my little indulgence. In early December, I bought my usual tickets. The accumulated jackpot was huge. the kind that makes headlines for weeks. But I didn't think much about it. I arrived at my apartment, ate something simple, watched a series without paying attention, and fell asleep. The next morning, I checked the numbers online while drinking coffee. I looked at my ticket, then I looked at the screen, then I looked at the ticket again. All 6 numbers matched. I sat in front of my phone for almost 20 minutes, barely breathing. I rechecked, refreshed the page, compared number by number, hoping to find a mistake. But there was no mistake. I had won over $500 million. My first impulse was to call my mom. I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to imagine my dad proud, Brenda surprised, Owen apologizing, for talking to me as if my life was worthless. I picked up the phone and started to dial. But I stopped. I thought about the last 2 months. About the empty chairs next to me. About the advice to dilute soap. About my dad telling me to walk to save gas. About Brenda treating me like a poor, irresponsible person. About Owen implying that my dismissal was a sign to become someone's wife. I put the phone down. I would tell them someday, of course, but not yet. I would wait until Christmas Eve. I wanted it to be a surprise. I would tell them during dinner, and help them all. Brenda's mortgage, Owen's children's university, my parents' retirement. Yes, they had treated me badly, but they were still my family. Before telling anyone, I sought professional help. I hired a financial advisor specializing in large prizes and family estates. His name was Richard, and he was expensive. But all the reviews I found said he was one of the best. "Congratulations, Grace," he said when we met. "Now comes the important part. We need to protect this and manage it intelligently." He explained how to validate the ticket, start the formal collection, pay taxes, document everything, and not overshare. Even after taxes, it was still an absurd amount. Richard helped me separate almost everything into investments, trusts, and reserves. What I left liquid was enough to live comfortably, buy a house, and decide without rushing. He also gave me a warning. Your family will react when they find out. And not always as one expects. I've seen families break up for less. "They're my family," I said. "They'll be happy for me." Richard looked at me like someone who had heard that phrase many times before. "I hope so," he replied. I spent the following weeks imagining the news on Christmas Eve. The surprise, the hugs, my mom saying she was proud. A week before Christmas Eve, my mom called me. "Grace, we need to talk," she said. Her voice sounded calm, almost administrative. "What happened?" "We've decided it would be better if you didn't come to dinner this year." I felt as if someone had punched me in the stomach. "What? You don't have a job. You don't have clear plans. Lately, you've been very negative. And frankly, we don't want to spend Christmas Eve with that energy." I remained silent. "Your attitude can ruin the night for others," she continued. "Mom, I'm not. Your failure is contagious, Grace. We don't want it to affect the rest of the family. It's not personal. We just think it's for the best." And she hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand, unable to believe what I had just heard. To make sure it hadn't been just her decision, I texted Owen. "Did you know Mom uninvited me from Christmas Eve dinner?" He replied within a minute. "Yes, we all agreed. Sorry, but you've been very down. We want a peaceful Christmas Eve." Then I texted Brenda. "Do you agree that I shouldn't go to dinner?" Her answer came shortly after. "Honestly, yes. Mom is right. You've been very difficult and bring everyone's mood down. Use these days to get your life in order." I should have cried. I wanted to cry. But I started to laugh. I laughed so hard that tears came to my eyes. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. Because I was about to tell them. I was about to share a fortune with people who thought I was too much of a failure to sit with them on Christmas Eve. The next day, I went to a dealership and bought a new SUV. One of those I didn't even dare to look at before. I paid cash. It cost just over $1 million. When I drove out, I felt light for the first time in months. That afternoon, Brenda called me. "Mom says you bought a new car," she blurted out without greeting me. "How much did you spend?" "I could afford it." She laughed, but it wasn't a nice laugh. "You're spending your last savings on a car. What a bad decision, Grace. When your landlord kicks you out for not paying rent, you're going to end up living in that SUV. I hung up on her. I spent Christmas Eve alone, but not locked away, feeling sorry for myself. I booked a dinner at an elegant restaurant in a hotel in Beverly Hills. I ordered lobster, a good steak, and a glass of expensive wine. The bill was over $500. I didn't care. That night, for the first time, I didn't have to pretend I was comfortable. At a table where no one wanted to sit with me. 2 weeks later, I called a real estate agent. A good one, the kind who works with serious buyers. I'm looking for a luxury home, I told him. Exclusive area, no strict budget limit, but I want discretion. His name was Robert, and he wasn't surprised. I have several properties that might interest you, he replied. For 2 weeks, we toured houses in Beverly Hills, Miami, and Seattle. Then I saw it. A house in Seattle's exclusive neighborhood. Over $40 million, with a garden, pool, high ceilings, and beautiful light. It wasn't ostentatious. It was elegant, quiet, solid. It was perfect. I want to make an offer, I said. Robert blinked. We can prepare it, review documents, and then make it. I want it. It didn't close in an afternoon. There was a notary, legal review, appraisals, proof of funds, and my advisors reviewed every page. Everything went smoothly. I paid cash. And between paperwork, furniture, and moving, January and almost all of February passed. I hired a company to pack my apartment and a decorator to furnish the new house. I wanted it to feel like mine. I didn't tell my family anything. In early March, I moved in. The house was beautiful. My space, my property, my silence. No one could come in and give their opinion, or leave an empty chair next to me to remind me I wasn't welcome. A week after I moved, my former landlord called me. Grace, your sister came looking for you. He was surprised to find other tenants. She wanted to know where you had gone. Thanks for letting me know. I hung up and waited. I knew Brenda would call. 2 days later, the parade of calls began. First Brenda, then my mom, then Brenda again. I ignored the phone for hours, until I finally answered when my mom called for the 5th time. Where are you? She demanded. Not a hello, not a how are you. Just anger. You moved out of the apartment. Where did you go? For a second, I thought maybe they were worried. That they wanted to know if I was okay. That perhaps their conscience had bothered them after leaving me out of Christmas Eve. Then my mom kept talking. If you're on the street, you can look for a shelter. Or sell that absurd SUV you bought and use the money for a rent deposit. That's when all doubt vanished. I have somewhere to live, Mom. I don't need a shelter. Don't worry, I hung up. A couple of weeks later, my doorbell rang. I looked through the window and saw Brenda at the entrance. Her mouth was open as she stared at the facade, the garden, the tall door, everything. I don't know why I opened it. I guess I still wanted to believe she was coming out of concern. How did you find my address? You forget my husband works in public safety, she said. I asked him to look it up. I stared at her. That wasn't affection, it was invasion. That's illegal, Brenda. And if you use my information like that again, I'm going to report it. She didn't even apologize. She walked past me and entered the house as if she had a right to. She walked through the living room, looking at the high ceilings, the furniture, the paintings, the light streaming through the large windows. Her face lost color. Who did you steal from? She whispered. I didn't answer. I took out my phone and showed her the picture I had taken of the winning ticket. The image with the 6 numbers, the evidence that still seemed unreal to me when I saw it. Brenda looked at the screen, then at me, then at the screen again. Her face hardened. She didn't say congratulations. She didn't say I'm happy for you. She didn't ask how I felt. She just turned around and walked out of my house without another word. I knew what would happen next. The next day, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. My mom called 4 times before I answered. What do you want? Brenda told us about the lottery, she said. We need to talk about this as a family. Your dad wants us to meet. All right, I said. You can come over Sunday afternoon. I gave her the address and hung up. On Sunday, everyone arrived. My parents, Brenda with her husband, Owen with his wife. They stood at the entrance looking at the house, as if they couldn't believe I lived there. I led them into the living room. They sat on the expensive sofas, looking at every detail. No one knew how to start. So I started. I won the lottery in December. Over $500 million. After taxes and protecting almost everything with advisors, investments, and trusts. I'm fine, very fine. The silence was absolute. I watched their faces as they processed the amount. I saw disbelief transform into calculation. Then they began. Family is the most important thing, my mom said. We've always been there for you. I looked at her expressionlessly. Owen leaned forward. I'm not asking for myself, it's for the kids. You know how expensive university is. Brenda settled into the sofa. Our mortgage is drowning us. I'm not saying you have an obligation, but if someone could help us, it would change our lives. My dad cleared his throat. He almost never asked for anything directly. But when it came to money, he always became tough. Your mom and I shouldn't have to ask you for anything. You know what's right. Not a single one said, congratulations. Not a single one said, I'm happy you're doing well. Not a single one asked what it felt like to win. How I was handling everything. If I was scared. If I needed support. They just asked. I'll think about it, I said. But for now, I want you to leave. They froze. Grace, my mom said. I want you to leave, I repeated. They got up with a mixture of offense and confusion. As they walked towards the door, I heard my mom whisper to my dad. She's going to help us. She has to. We're her family. During the following week, my phone filled with messages. My mom sent me baby pictures. Remember who took care of you when you couldn't do anything alone, she wrote. Brenda talked about how close we had been as children. My dad said he was proud of me. Owen repeated that his children were innocent, and that I could change their future with a simple decision. I read everything. I didn't respond to anything. What struck me most was what no one mentioned. No one talked about Christmas Eve dinner. No one apologized for kicking me out. No one said, we were wrong about you. Then, I decided to do one last test. I wrote in the family group chat. I've been thinking about donating almost all the money to a foundation. My phone rang in less than 30 seconds. It was my dad, and he was shouting, Are you crazy? You're going to give millions to strangers? You can't be that irresponsible. Then I heard my mom take the phone from him. You've lost your mind, Grace. What's wrong with you? I hung up, but immediately a video call came in from the family group. I don't know why I accepted it. Maybe because I wanted to see their faces one last time. There they all were, tense, angry, desperate. I heard Owen's voice in the background. We need to talk to a lawyer. She can't make decisions like that. We need to see if someone can intervene before she wastes everything. I looked at my family on the screen. All furious, all talking about the money as if it were already theirs. I'm not giving you a single cent, I said. Then, I ended the call and blocked their numbers. From there, they started showing up at my house. First, it was my parents. They rang the doorbell for 10 straight minutes. I watched them from a second-story window. My mom was crying. My dad walked back and forth, looking towards the security camera, as if that would force me to open. I didn't open. The next day, it was Owen and his wife. Doorbell. Knocks on the door. Messages that didn't go through because they were blocked. Then Brenda appeared with her husband. Brenda said I was being cruel. Her husband looked around uncomfortably, as if he finally understood that finding my address hadn't been a good idea. The house had cameras and contracted security, but it wasn't inside a gated community. They could reach the gate, ring, insist, leave messages. After the second visit, I stated that I did not authorize any family member's entry, and I asked them to record every attempt. This continued for a week. They came to talk, to explain, to fix things, but I knew they didn't want to fix anything. They wanted to convince me, pressure me, wear me down. I never opened. I also understood something. They weren't going to stop. They already knew where I lived. They could come back whenever they wanted. They could turn my house into another battlefield. I made a decision. I was leaving. I contacted a real estate agent in Seattle. It was far enough from Chicago that my family couldn't just show up whenever they felt entitled, and it was a large city, with good services and enough anonymity to start anew. I need a house fast, I told her. I have the money ready. I want security, privacy, and discretion. In less than a week, she found me a beautiful house. Smaller than the one in Beverly Hills, but just as elegant. In a quiet area, with security and a lot of privacy. I signed a purchase agreement with my advisors, reviewing everything. The deed would close later, without exposing my personal address. Then I put the Chicago house up for sale. I hired another company to manage everything remotely. I didn't want to be present for viewings. I didn't want to talk to curious people. I didn't want my family to know my movements. 2 weeks later, I packed my things. The move began before dawn, with the loudest items prepared the night before. By the time the sun came up, I was gone. I rested for a few hours in a small hotel away from the house and left for Seattle in daylight. I took the highway, avoiding heavy rush hour. Not counting stops, it was almost 6 hours. Most of the day was gone. I drove with a strange feeling in my chest. Sadness, yes, fear too, but above all, relief. I settled into my new house. It was comfortable, bright, with a small garden. Most importantly, no one there knew who I was or how much money I had. I changed my phone number, closed my social media, canceled old accounts. Richard had put the properties and my important movements under structures that protected my personal address. I cut off all ways my family had to contact me, all except one. My Aunt Amelia, my mom's younger sister. She lived in Miami and had always been different from the rest of the family. More calm, warmer. As a child, she was the only adult who listened to me. Without correcting me every 2 minutes, I called her from my new number and told her everything. The lottery, my family's reaction, the house, the visits, my decision to disappear. "It's good that you left," she said. I was surprised to hear her so firm. "They don't deserve your money or your peace of mind. Can you keep my number a secret? I want to keep talking to you, but I don't want anyone else to know how to find me. Your secret is safe with me, honey." With my new life in Seattle, I finally thought about what I wanted to do with the money. I decided to create a foundation, but Richard quickly brought me back to reality. First, we established a civil association. Authorization as a donee would take time. So we started with our own resources, clear rules, and lawyers reviewing every step. I knew what it was like to lose a job and feel like everyone looked at you as if you were worthless. I wanted to support laid-off people, single mothers, young people without money for university, and families at risk of losing their homes. I didn't want that money to become another way to hold me. I wanted it to serve a purpose, but with order. I started working there myself. I didn't just sign checks. I sat with people, listened to their stories, reviewed cases. I saw mothers crying because they would be able to keep their apartment one more month. I saw young people who couldn't believe someone would pay their enrollment. I saw men and women who had lost their jobs and needed a real opportunity, not a sermon. It felt good, better than any marketing campaign I had ever done. A few months later, we organized a dinner to present the programs and attract donors, entrepreneurs, and allies. I wore a nice dress, nothing flashy. I was talking to an important donor when a man approached. "Grace Miller," he said. "I'm Fred Arrington. I have a technology company here in Seattle. I've read about the work you're doing. I'm interested in helping." He shook my hand naturally. He didn't look at my dress, my jewelry, or the room. He looked me in the eyes. "I'd like to know what programs need funding. If you have time." We talked for over an hour. Fred seemed genuinely interested. He didn't talk about the foundation as an opportunity to look good. He asked specific questions. How many families received support? How did we choose cases? What follow-up did we provide? When dinner ended, we walked towards the exit. "I enjoyed talking with you," he said. "And not just about the programs, Would you like to have dinner with me? I laughed. Yes, I would. We started seeing each other frequently. First, there were dinners to talk about the association. Then coffees and outings that had nothing to do with work anymore. Fred made me laugh, listened, and didn't make me feel like my money was the most interesting thing about me. Still, I went slowly. I told him parts of my story little by little. I told him about my family, about Christmas Eve, about the Beverly Hills house, about the visits. I didn't do it to gain sympathy. I did it because I needed to know if he could respect my boundaries. He respected them. 6 months later, he proposed marriage. We were having dinner at his house. Nothing exaggerated or staged to show off. Just the two of us, soft music, food he had tried to cook, even if it wasn't perfect. Suddenly he got up, took out a small box, and became nervous for the first time since I had known him. Grace, he said, I know what you've had to protect to be at peace. I don't want to invade that. I want a life with you, if you want one too. He opened the box. I said yes. Around that time, my Aunt Amelia called me with news. Your family is going crazy trying to find you, she said. Your mom calls me every week to ask if I know anything about you. And what do you tell her? No. What are they saying? That you stole from them, that you owe them, that you abandoned the family. Your mom plays the victim with everyone. She says she doesn't understand why you cut them off. That she only wanted to help you. They mention the money, not directly. That doesn't suit them. They just tell it as if you disappeared out of nowhere, for no reason. They know you moved. They know you're no longer in the Beverly Hills house. Someone told them it sold, but they have no idea where you went. Good. Your mom tried to hire a private investigator, she added. But apparently you did things well. He didn't find a reliable address. I felt a deep sense of relief. My plan had worked. I was truly free. By the time the next year arrived, the wedding was near. We wanted something small, intimate, without drama or demands. The ceremony would be in early June. With 20 people, close friends, some of Fred's partners, a couple of people from the association, and my Aunt Amelia, who would travel from Miami. We rented a small garden on the outskirts of Seattle, with bougainvillea, tall trees, and simple tables. June could bring rain at any moment, but that afternoon, the sky gave us a reprieve. My Aunt Amelia arrived 2 days before. I picked her up at the airport and she hugged me for a long time. That afternoon we had coffee at my house. Your mom keeps saying you abandoned her, she told me. Of course, I said. Without mentioning that, she kicked me out of Christmas Eve dinner because my failure was contagious. She doesn't tell that part. And the others? Brenda says you're selfish and cruel. Owen talks less, but your mom says he's worried about his children's university. Apparently, he was counting on you to solve it. Owen has a job. He can save for his own children. I know. I'm just telling you what I've heard. Do they know about the wedding? No, not from me. I haven't told them anything. Thank you. My aunt reached out and squeezed my hand. You did well to leave, honey. Family is one thing. Letting them walk all over you is another. The wedding day arrived peacefully. Fred and I exchanged simple, honest vows. In front of 20 people, no one interrupted. No one made a scene. No one demanded anything. At the reception, I danced with Fred. I hugged my Aunt Amelia and laughed more than I had in years. My aunt gave a brief toast. She just raised her glass and said she was happy to see me at peace. That night, when everyone had left, Fred and I sat on the terrace of the hotel suite. Are you okay? He asked me. Yes. I mean, about your family, about them not being here. I took a deep breath. I'm fine. If they had come, nothing would have been about us. It would have been about them, about the money, about demands. They would have found a way to make a peaceful day difficult. Fred looked at me carefully. Are you sure you don't want to try to reconnect with them someday? I thought about it. I really did. No, I said. In the end, they showed me exactly who they are. When I lost my job, they treated me as if I was worthless. They disinvited me from Christmas Eve because, according to them, my failure was contagious. And when they found out about the money, they didn't congratulate me. They didn't ask how I was. They just started asking. Fred nodded. I just wanted to know if you were at peace with that. I am. The months after the wedding were intense. The association grew, scholarships for 50 students, support for 30 families at risk of losing their homes, and job training for over 100 people. I worked there 4 days a week. It was a real job, work that changed something. One late September afternoon, my Aunt Amelia called me. Your mom keeps asking about you, she said. I'm not surprised. She wants me to tell you that she forgives you for everything, and that you can come home whenever you want. I let out a short laugh. She forgives me? That's what she said. She didn't apologize. She said she forgave you. She frames it as if you had a crisis, and she's willing to overlook it. Incredible. She also asked if I knew if you had already spent all the money. She seems convinced that you'll soon come back asking for help. Well, she's wrong. The money is invested, the association is doing well, and I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. I know, honey. I can hear it in your voice. After hanging up, I sat with Fred in the living room of our house. We had chosen it as a couple. Not as a refuge, not as a statement, but as a home. My mom apparently forgives me, I told him. Fred raised an eyebrow. How generous. She also thinks I'm going to come crawling back when I run out of money. Do you want to? Even a little? Not even a little. And it was true. I don't miss them, I continued. I don't think about them, except when my aunt tells me something. And even then, it doesn't hurt the same way anymore. It's just information. I don't hate them. I don't wish them ill. I just don't owe them my peace anymore. That sounds pretty healthy. The only thing that sometimes weighs on me is Owen's children. They're not to blame. Fred moved closer and put an arm around my shoulders. You built an entire association to help young people like them. Except you do it through the right channels. With clear rules for people who appreciate it, and don't demand it as if it were an obligation. He was right. I was helping a lot. But on my terms. Without blackmail, without shouting, without people who despised me when I was down, and demanded from me when I was up. My life was good. I had a husband who loved me for who I was. A meaningful job. Friends who were happy to see me well. And my Aunt Amelia, the only person in my family who had decided to love me unconditionally. I didn't need my parents' approval. I didn't need to return to a table where they left empty chairs next to me. I didn't need to convince my siblings that I was worth something. I earned the lottery. Yes. But what really changed my life was no longer sitting at a table, where I was made to feel like a burden.